Good morning, guys, or good afternoon. This is Swapnil, and welcome you all to LoudST. Hi, whoever has joined. Welcome to this. To this, this is not a LoudST live debate. We've held live debates in the past, but this is more a discussion on on certain topics that this is a new concept we're starting now, where we can all come in, have a chat on something which is relevant in today's times. As you all know, LoudST has organized Instagram live debates in the past. We've debated adultery and the law. The need to decriminalize the law. We had a judgment, in fact, last week, but we debated this very topic a few months back. In fact, last month we debated another topic which was on dissent versus dissent. Is that a threat to democracy? If we are suppressing dissent. So all very relevant topics, but those are debates. This is more a discussion where we can all come in. You all know that LoudST has an app, has an Android app. We also, hello everyone who's joined. So we have an Android app, and on the app we are now increasing, what we discuss. That there are more topics to discuss there, and what we'll do through this, this live session is to take up topics from there. As well as from outside, outside the app. We want all of you to come join the app. So let me get in somebody. Hi, hello everyone. Let me get in Anuradha to join on this discussion. 1 second, please. Hey guys, hi. So you guys are more accustomed to the live debates that we've held here, but today is more a freewheeling discussion, a freewheeling chat on something which is relevant. Not taking sides here. We're just talking about what we feel, and let me get Anuradha in there. Yeah. So today, in fact, I think there's some issue with the network, it seems. But today, what we're discussing is, the practice of manual scavenging, and how that continues, and how it really talks about. It basically tells us that caste system still exists. It's the lowest form of manual labor. I mean, people continue to die despite the fact that it has been deemed illegal years ago, and I think last week there was a protest against this. The bigger problem is it's the lowest form of human labor, and yet there are human beings who have to do this, and yeah. Okay, so.
Hey, Swapnil.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks
for joining.
You're taking over my time and my story.
I'm not. In fact, I thought, before you join, I'll set the context. So, as we've discussed, in fact, I was just talking about how manual scavenging, despite being the lowest form of manual labor, I mean, it's inhuman. And despite being deemed illegal many years ago, it continues, and it is a stark reminder of the caste system, the caste hierarchy that still exists, and the fact that people continue to die. We've not really modernized that system. We're not using machines to the extent that we have to, and that means that manual labor is used. So this is something that we wanted to discuss. So what's your what's your take on it? Why don't you give a context to it to everybody here, and
Okay.
Yeah. Over
my
to you.
my idea was to tell a story which doesn't have a start or an end. Okay.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So you can start anywhere. Okay. This story is not how a good story is written. Okay. And this story is not even a story that has been written. So I'm just trying to understand a few things. Okay. And I would like to have a conversation with all the people watching this on whatever thought has triggered this supposed story. Okay. Remember that popular dialogue in which movie was it? When Amitabh Bachchan said, "मैं फेंके हुए पैसे नहीं उठाता."
This one. Coolie.
Coolie?
No,
Coolie.
no, not Coolie. No, not Coolie. Diwar.
Okay, whichever movie it was repeated. It was uttered twice. One was मैं फेंके हुए पैसे नहीं उठाता, and मैं आज भी फेंके हुए पैसे नहीं उठाता. And that dialogue has got so much cheer. Okay.
Yeah.
Over the years, we still continue to cheer that. You know why?
Absolutely.
Because that's the right to live with dignity.
Oh,
in that line that has been. I mean, it's a very simple line to understand. We understand it. We have the right to live with dignity. Or if you are throwing money at me, which is my earning, that means you are infringing upon that right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then there are a lot of other things I would like to talk about. Another movie, Toilet, Ek Prem Katha. Okay.
Yeah.
Revolutionary of sorts, or maybe the kind that made us realize something that we take for granted. Open defecation is not something we face. Most of the people watching this on Instagram are not the ones.
They don't.
Not the ones. Who have to go through open or the challenges of defecating in the open. Right? Yeah. So the movie brought it out, and of course, in a filmy way, of course. But we understood what it was trying to tell us. It was trying to tell us that open defecation makes us vulnerable to diseases, and of course, it makes us horrifically vulnerable to molestation as well. Okay. Yeah. So again, there's this right to dignity, a right to live with dignity. Women, it was basically portrayed as a problem that women face, where they do not have the right to live with dignity if they defecate in the open. Right? And then, of course, the administration is addressing it. In fact, there is a number that I would like to discuss later. I'm just bringing this up now. That 30 million pits and septic tanks are to be created along the Ganga by 2019. Okay, I'll come back to this 30 million later. Anyway, let's talk about Goa trips. Okay. Yeah. Goa trips, beaches. When we want to go to use the washroom, what do we do? There are these makeshift toilets. Yes, right? They do. Yes. Yeah. Where does that excreta go? Nowhere. It's a dry toilet. It's a dry latrine. Okay. We have these all over the beaches, all over the country. Okay. We use this. Okay. So we know Amitabh Bachchan's line of "मैं फेंके हुए पैसे नहीं लौटाता." We understand the right to live with dignity. We understand Toilet Ek Prem Katha story. What a horrific thing to defecate in the open, and how do people not get it? We get that. We also understand our what's wrong with me? Our majburi of going to a dry latrine on the beaches of Goa, because there's no other way out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But who on earth is cleaning after us? Oh, absolutely. Okay. And then railway tracks, ugly sights on the railway tracks on railway stations. Okay. And that is why there's always a message that don't use the washroom at the platforms. Oh, yes. At the stations. So, because you use the washroom at the stations, there's no system, right? It lands on the railway tracks. And somebody is cleaning after us. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Then another thing. We are also told in several places not to dump things down the drain, not to flush things down our toilet. Don't flush diapers, don't flush sanitary pads, don't flush condoms. We do everything because there's a point when there's no other way out. We don't feel there's a way out, and people do it. So the reason I'm telling you all this are things. These are things that we have experienced, seen, observed, understand. Okay. Someone is cleaning after us. Okay. And this is definitely not us. And you started the conversation saying that this manual scavenging which exists, and there have been deaths, and I mean that we need to talk about the deaths that are being caused by this. But there are 3 Ds that we need to discuss. There's this lack of dignity.
Clearly.
There's this vulnerability to disease.
Yeah.
And then there's death.
Of course.
The deaths that we're talking about are the deaths that happened in the sewers. Okay.
Yes.
And those have been, according to some data, those have been around 1,300 in the last 10 years. Okay.
That's a massive number.
Yes, but
that's
number. The only number we are agitating on.
Yeah, I know. No, of course, I also talked about the lowest form of manual labor, which is the dignity bit that you're talking about, and it continues to be a caste-based occupation.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Continues to be a.
In fact, this is an occupation where there's 100% reservation for Dalits.
Oh, clearly. Somebody pointed that out.
And there's 90% representation by women.
Yeah.
Awesome,
right?
Man.
That is awesome. I mean, women don't need a reservation bill there. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
They don't need a reservation bill.
So another thing, manual scavenging.
So it's quite funny. It's quite funny that the 2 professions continue to be heavily dominated by the caste. One is priesthood, and the other is manual scavenging. So that is it's actually they're the 2 ends of the spectrum if you look at the caste hierarchy in India. It's very, very interesting. Anyway, go ahead.
So another thing, manual scavenging exists. We all acknowledge that. Hopefully, we all acknowledge that. Okay. Of course, we also have the habit of ignoring a lot of things. But interesting, it exists, but it is a banned practice. Okay. 25 years ago, we came up with this act called Employment of Manual Scavengers and Construction of Dry Laterals Prohibition Act. Okay?
Yeah, which is 93.
93. And 20 years later, we had another act, Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Act. Okay? So, the administration over the years has somehow taken this as an infrastructure problem, which it definitely is. But it is also a social problem.
It is a massive social problem. It is a massive social problem.
So I was trying to gather some data around it, that how do we, while there are laws in place, how are we letting this continue? Why are we letting this continue? In terms of why we letting this continue? Is it because of cheap manual labor?
I think it's because of 2 things. It's obviously something that is needed. So somebody needs to clean up. So that's required. It's a basic human need. But we don't stop and think. We don't stop and think at the lack of dignity, at the fact that this is such a level of manual labor. We don't stop and think. We just don't do that. And we don't ask our municipalities, our governments to keep this at the highest priority. Of course, education takes a very high priority. We ask our governments about GDP growth. We ask our governments about jobs, but we don't. We ask our governments, at different segments. We talk about reservation in public sector and private sector, but we rarely question our governments on this. Why has this not been implemented in the way it should have been? Why have scavenging not been mechanized?
I'll tell you another funny fact. Okay, fun fact. So I told you about the Prohibition Act 93. I told you about another Prohibition Act 2013.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also a scholarship program. Okay. For manual scavengers. So if you have done 100 days of manual scavenging, you are eligible for this scholarship.
Okay.
How do you propose a program for a practice that is officially banned. Okay.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Yeah. It's like wink, wink, and look away. That kind of a thing.
Wink, wink, and look away. Yeah, absolutely rightly put.
Exactly.
So I was telling you about the numbers that I was trying to look. So government data 2013. Okay, 13.
Yeah.
Government data. We have 12,000 manual scavengers. 82% of those are concentrated in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Okay, that's the government data. 12,000. And then people tell us that it is absolutely gross underrepresentation of the reality. Why?
Has to be.
Yeah. Why? Because 2011 census tells us that there are 7,40,000 and odd households where the human excreta is cleared out by manual scavengers. 7,40,000 and odd. Okay, households.
Yeah.
Okay. These are just the households. Then you have your septic tanks, railway tracks, public sewers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then another number that there are 21 lakh households that dispose of their waste in dry latrines or drains, which have to be cleared out by manual scavengers. How will this official data of only 12,000 taking care of? I mean, how can they take care of this enormous number? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's another census not related to the data on manual scavengers, but this is a socio-economic caste census again done in 2011. It says that about 182,000 families, at least one member of each of these families is involved in manual scavenging. At least one member of each of these families. 182,000. Okay. Anyway, so that's one kind of number. There's another kind of number. The people employed here, die as young as 40.
Okay.
So while we are focusing on the number of deaths in the last 10 years, 1,340 deaths. In fact, more than 100 deaths this year itself. Okay.
Sure.
We're talking about deaths, but what about the people who do not die in the sewers but die later because
of the disease that they contract?
Yeah. So the occupational hazard in this constitutes cholera, hepatitis, typhoid, meningitis, a number of respiratory problems, a number of skin diseases. I mean, it's countless. Okay.
Yeah.
So I told you, the occupational hazards of this occupation, they are interesting. The women representation in this occupation is amazing. 90% women.
It's so high.
Yeah. 100% Dalits in this occupation, amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right?
It's completely
such positive numbers if you just move the occupation out of it. Yeah. The occupation is something that does not allow us the right to live with dignity. Okay.
Yeah.
Then, and the disease and the death, of course. Okay. Now, let me come back to the one number that I mentioned earlier, that by 2019, we will have 30 million pits and septic tanks created along the Ganga. Okay. And the effect of toilet prem katha, or the impact of cleaning the place. So we are all talking about removing open defecation, everything. Over the years, even the current government, the current government is also working hard. Current administration is also working hard to do the Swachh Bharat mission. But creating toilets is not enough. We're solving. There is one problem, and there's another. Who's cleaning after us?
Yeah. So that has clearly not received as much attention.
Of course, acts have been in place, and see, every time this topic is mentioned, some people get offended because they think we're making it a caste issue.
Okay. It is a caste issue, very clearly. I mean, according to me, personally.
Yes, but absolutely. But the thing is, even those people who get offended at the utterance of the word caste, even to appease them, if we decide to remove the word caste, there's a section of our society, people living today with us, who are cleaning after us, generations after generations. This is the only thing they do. They do not have the right to live with dignity. Their liberation seems to be only in death, because their next generation, the daughters-in-law the women who get married to other households who do manual scavenging are to do the same job.
Yeah.
Okay. And another very interesting thing that I came across was some 2015 data that 70% of our sewage is untreated.
Okay. Yeah. Oh my God.
Okay. So imagine
who,
the onus of cleaning this. It lies with those at the bottom of our social hierarchy.
Oh, clearly. Clearly. Yeah.
I was talking to you about, I mentioned the Goa.
And in fact,
yes,
yeah, in fact, when you say bottom, you're absolutely right. Absolutely bottom. And many a times, this category, they don't even get the benefit of the normal reservation system. I mean, they don't get it because they've been scavenging for generations, as you mentioned, and many a times they don't even get the benefit of what's theirs, even in the reservation system. Yeah, go ahead on the Goa thing.
People get thrown out of schools. Forget reservations.
Oh, yeah.
They are still, kids of the manual scavengers are untouchables in schools. They're thrown out of schools.
What I'm saying.
They're served food in a differently colored plates. Okay.
Oh, clearly.
Reservations, बहुत दूर की बात है.
The point is, the legislation sometimes have to be. I mean, I was reading a very funny, not funny, but very interestingly, some people, in the context of the adultery law, in the context of the temple and the entry of women in the temples, people were saying that Supreme Court should not come in and intervene in what's a social custom. Let the society decide. Let the society evolve, and the legislation should follow later. Unfortunately, what happens is, what we have seen in India is the law has to be set in place either by the judiciary or by the parliament. They normally come before the social changes, And the classic example in this case is manual scavenging. It's been illegal for 25 years. So there is a law, clearly. But we as a society, we've done nothing about it. We've hardly ever questioned who cleans up after us. Why are we not holding the municipalities accountable for this? We obviously talk, when we go and vote in the municipal elections, whether it is Bombay, whether it's Delhi, we talk about the condition of roads. We talk about we talk about the pollution. We talk about various things. Hardly ever talk about manual scavenging. We hardly ever talk about.
So the thing is, even with lakhs employed here, there's still just a handful of people among all of us. Okay, yeah. And they're poorly represented. Okay, they do not get heard often. We take notice of their plight only when a death happens, or only when a photo of a child attending to the dead body of his father is shared on social media. Yeah. So we wake up to this reality. Okay, and the thing is, we're still waking up after the death in the sewer. The life that they're living is absolutely.
We don't even stop and think, and that's what that's what hopefully discussions like these make do us. I mean, why don't we stop and think, and why don't we really raise a voice against it? This is such as we've talked about so many things. We talk about even private sector reservations, but we don't talk about this. This is this is an important issue. This is something that municipalities, with the mega budgets that they have. I know BMC has a massive budget. I mean, they've got such huge cash reserves, and they've done nothing about this. They've done nothing about this.
You mentioned cash, hence I'm going to share another number with you. So, I was telling you that 90% of the people involved in this are women, because for household disposal of waste, people prefer women entering their households. Okay, and you know how much they get paid? They get paid between rupees 10 and rupees 50 per month per household. Okay, there's a gender pay gap here as well. The men who clean sewer tanks, sewer lines, they get paid 300 rupees per day.
Yeah, I mean that is there across.
So that's another subject. We'll discuss some other time.
That's another subject. In fact, on that point, I was having a discussion with someone, and just very briefly, I'll digress here. So in rural India, the participation of women folk generally in the workforce has increased because the men they move to the cities or towns because they get better work there, and women continue to do a low paying job in the rural areas. So anyway, that's a discussion for some other time.
For another time, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. That's a discussion. I mean, we'll discuss gender pay gap too, I believe, and that gender pay gap across cities and
sectors.
Of course, across sectors. So I think, go ahead.
I just have one thing to share in my story before we wrap this up. Mm-hmm. So, the debts that we are, I'm of course, clearly unhappy about. Yeah. We are contributing to this, not just by sitting silent, but we are actually contributing to their debts. Why do the debts happen? Asphyxiation, toxic gases. Okay, why do these toxic gases happen? Because we dump just anything in our
in the toilets. In the toilet, yeah, exactly.
So the moment you dump sanitary pads, diapers, condoms in your toilet, you are just leading that to cause somebody's death.
True that. Absolutely.
Collectively, we are causing deaths right there.
Couldn't agree more.
Apart from the horrific practice that continues, apart from the horrific lack of, the clear infringement of the right to live with dignity, we are also causing these deaths. Every time we dispose of anything other than human excreta down our toilet, we should know that this is going to cause a disease or a death somewhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. I completely agree. In fact, one of our viewers, Bharti, she's saying these people and their children don't get basic medical benefits too, which is true.
Completely agreed.
Yeah. I think, it's what, if I have to just sum up what we discussed today, clearly, we talked about the 3 Ds, the lack of dignity, the fact that people who do this, they contract diseases. Exactly. And ultimately it leads to death. Sometimes these diseases lead to death. Sometimes it's death in the sewers while cleaning, so there cannot be any doubt that, that there needs to be a discussion. Clearly, we need to ask more. We need to stop and think what's happening. Of course, the government has been focusing on creating toilets, but we also need to ask our local municipalities as to what happens, who cleans up, and why are you not mechanizing this entire system? I mean, how many countries in the world has manual scavenging as a practice? Hardly. I think, and we're not just talking about the first world countries. So the fact of the matter is, we have to stop and think. We have to think and question our municipalities as to what you're doing about manual scavenging. We ask them all sorts of questions, but we should definitely ask this question. We should ourselves be cognizant about dumping things in the toilet, for example, and and we should all clearly stop and think as to the kind of labor it is and the lack of dignity that somebody who's doing this for generations, what kind of mental state they are in, and what kind of dignity they cannot claim of. I mean, it's pure, complete lack of dignity. And then there is obviously, so that's the root cause. The root cause being municipalities not taking care of this. The root cause being we dumping things. The root cause being we not even stopping and thinking about this. I mean, railway tracks you mentioned, and you mentioned don't use the toilet during in the stations. But what about using the toilet while in the journey, and somebody still has to clean it up. I mean, sometimes obviously
somebody cleans after us. Absolutely.
So the point is, maybe the nature takes over there, in terms of, it gets mixed with the soil or whatever. But in the stations, clearly somebody has to clean it. So
this thing is entirely a case of us and them.
Yeah.
Like,
and
the lines couldn't be starker.
Yeah.
They're like, I mean, this is clearly us and them.
Yeah.
Somebody cleans after us. We litter. Somebody cleans after us.
Yeah.
We do whatever we do. Somebody cleans after us. In fact, I would like to mention an organization that has been trying to get the right numbers front. They're doing some great work in this space. They're called the Safai Karmchari Andolan, KSK. In fact, I got a lot of data because of how they have managed to gather the data. And the great thing is that some people are doing their bit. The important thing is that we need to be a little aware.
Clearly, we need to be cognizant. We need to be cognizant.
Raise this again and again. Every time we raise things that you mentioned, reservations in the public sector, private sector, whatever, every time we raise any other issue, we have to remember this exists. Every time we talk about untouchability, we have to remember that kids get thrown out of schools, kids get different plates, the people cleaning our toilets, the people cleaning after us are the ones being treated really, really unfairly.
Clearly. No, of course. We should be cognizant. We should question.
We need to question again and again. We need to bring this up again and again. How can we help in our everyday lives?
Yeah, I think we clearly need to clearly question our municipalities. I mean, and this is a problem which won't go away immediately. But if we focus, if we ask our municipalities, if we ask as to why these things are not getting mechanized, maybe it'll be a start. And that's all it needs sometimes. It needs a start. It needs a start at a slightly larger scale as compared to what it is right now. And that start may hopefully resolve this issue. Maybe it'll take another generation, but to completely resolve this. But hopefully we'll get there. I think it was.
Keep raising this.
You have to keep raising it. Yeah, absolutely agree. Great. I think great discussion, Anuradha. Thanks so much for joining. What we plan to do is hold such discussions going forward. Freewheeling chat. There's no format. We clearly are discussing things. What we'll also do is going forward. If you are not there on LoudST, please join LoudST. That's we have an Android app. We have an iOS app which is coming up very, very soon. So we debate such topics in there. And what we'll do is on some hot topic that we debate there, we'll take them up in sessions like these as well. Because we want, apart from the two people who are talking on the call, we would want to take up the comments of other people, what they're saying. What kind of arguments we hear on any side of that debate, and hopefully we'll also create a post on this particular on today's discussion. So let's do that. We'll do that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Anuradha. Thanks for joining. And
thanks, Swapnil. Have a good Sunday.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. We are now wrapping this up, and we'll make this a regular affair, guys.